The federal government has been advised to re-strategize its fight against the insurgency. Speakers at a forum held in Lagos tagged "Combating Terrorism in Nigeria" blamed the continuous attacks on lack of direction in the fight. One of the speakers, Professor Akinyeye from the University of Lagos, insists that the insurgency will continue if the socio-political and economic variables are unstable.
There will continue to be terrorism as long as there will continue to be misunderstanding, disagreement about government, as long as there will be inequity in a society, as long as there will be people dissatisfied with the organization of the economy.
His words reverberate in the hall. He has the audience's attention. Professor Olajumbo Akinyeye fears that the repented Niger Delta militants may return to the creeks if government does not keep to its own end of the amnesty deal.
You don't waste your time negotiating or granting amnesty. The amnesty you granted to the Niger Delta in the context of their own is simply to encourage them to temporize, to fortify themselves more. So if you are dealing with these amorphous and not clearly understood terrorist organization, you don't go out to negotiate because nothing will come out of that negotiation.
Liman Galtima is a one-time presidential candidate in the 2007 election. His comments alongside other speakers demand government's willingness and readiness to fight insurgency to a stop.
Muslims and Christians, irrespective of some unfortunate clashes over the years, have largely cohabited peacefully. Even when religious conflicts occurred, the fault lines were well understood and combatants identified. But the contemporary happenings are unprecedented, both in the magnitude of the terrorism, the glorying of the killers, and the evil it portends for Nigeria.
Minority lawmakers ruling the majority, tension of selfish defection or shameless defection as well, and claims to power on the platform of either religion or ethnicity, and unaddressed high degree of corruption and nepotism, and the lack of respect for democratic provisions and the rule of law are capable of forcing desperate politicians into teaming up with Boko Haram to achieve their inordinate political ambition.
It would take 12 police officers about 450 hours to go around 1.5 kilometers square, searching the area for anything. That same area, it would take 12 minutes for one helicopter to survey it, take pictures, and then take action. And how much will it cost? 45,000 naira for 12 minutes of helicopter operation. Is that the kind of money that we don't have in Nigeria, or is just the lack of willingness to address the issue?
As the fight to stem insurgency continues, it looks like the days of uncertainties are ahead as the country's financial status is yet to firm up due to the falling crude oil prices, and this might hamper development. Loretta Chiogo, Channels Television News.
To health issues now, and the provision of medical services in Lagos State may soon be disrupted as doctors in the state have threatened to go on strike. The Medical Guild, a group of doctors working in the state government-owned hospitals, said in a statement that its members will withdraw their services after the expiration of a 21-day notice issued by the Guild to the government since December the 29th, 2014. The doctors are aggrieved over what they describe as victimization and non-payment of August and September 2014 salaries. The doctors had embarked on a nationwide strike, which was declared by the Nigerian Medical Association in July last year. In response, the Lagos State government has insisted on not paying them for the period, owing to the no work, no pay policy. Well, it appears the issue of industrial action may remain on the front burner even this year, as the Judiciary Workers' Staff Union have embarked on an indefinite strike to press for financial autonomy for the judiciary. Now, the president of the union, Mr. Marwan Mustafa Adamu, says 1 year after the judgment of the Federal High Court, Both the federal and state governments have refused to comply with the orders of the court. He stated that until their demands are met, Nigerian courts will remain closed.
It's the first Monday of the new year. After a long break, workers are returning to work, but that was not to be for judiciary workers and other players in the sector, as most cuts in the nation's capital were under lock and key. The Federal High Court, the Appeal Court and the Supreme Court were all empty, while leaders of the union were on hand to ensure a total compliance to the industrial action. The president of the union explained the reason for the industrial action as the failure of the government at all levels to respect the judgment of the Federal High Court and several memorandum of understanding on financial autonomy for the judiciary.
Today is a year. We have engaged with the stakeholders, the PAC, the composition of accountant generals of state and the federal, and yet we entered about 7 MOU with them, and in all these MOUs they failed. And we even felt that it's just out of courtesy trying to see the situation of the country. If not, if there's a court judgment, we don't need even to enter MOU with anybody. So we felt the best thing we can do is to go back to this strike and ensure that that court judgment was complied with.
He, however, promised that the members of the union will not hesitate to return to work should their demands be met.
It is simple. It's not much. It's for the PAC, the Accountant General of the Federation, to deduct that money, give the check to the NJC, as it said in the court. We will certainly go back to work. That is only conditions for us to go back to work. We don't need any much stress. We didn't even give a much demand in this issue. Go deduct the money, pay it to the NJC, let the state take the money as it is.
This is not the first time the judiciary workers have downed tools to press home their demand for financial autonomy for the judiciary. Nigerians are watching to see who blinks first, the government or the workers. Amaka Okafor, Channels Television News.
Well, we do continue our review of 2014. Now, the judiciary in that year witnessed many challenges, starting with the task of ending corruption and then the attack on judges by alleged political thugs in Ekiti State. There was also the crisis that rocked the Rivers State judiciary in the middle of the year. Tonight, our correspondent, Victoria Ido, takes a look at the judiciary in 2014.
The crisis in Rivers State, which has left litigants in the state helpless, rocks the foundation of the judiciary in the country in 2014.
The person nominated by the NJC has a brother who is a member of the NJC and is being supported by the powers that be in Abuja with intent to destabilize the government of Rivers State. They have insisted that they will appoint a judge. They will appoint a judge without the governor and without the Rivers State House of Assembly. And Rivers people want to stand there to say no.
The issue is who has the final say in the appointment of judges. We all know that NJC holds his in terms of determining the quality of judicial personnel to be appointed.
In Ekiti State, violence erupted in the state judiciary where 2 judges, including the chief judge, were allegedly attacked by thugs alleged to be loyal to the governor.
Judges were assaulted. In what circumstances those judges were assaulted remains unclear. And I think we need to investigate that scenario because it's something that is reprehensible, something that is condemnable, something that appears unheard of. And if it is not investigated and punished, it could occur again, and it will serve as a dangerous precedent.
There were not many cases of election petition in the country throughout 2014 as opposed to previous years.
The bill seeks to outlaw same-sex marriage.
Also in the year, the House of Representatives passed a bill prohibiting same-sex marriage in Nigeria.
Marriage or civil union entered between persons of same gender shall not be solemnized in any place of worship, either church or mosque, in Nigeria.
Financial autonomy was another issue for the judiciary in 2014, when the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria challenged the piecemeal payment of funds accruing to judiciary from the Consolidated Revenue Fund.
Over the years, funding of the courts has remained a challenge, as evidenced in the conditions of many courts in Nigeria today.
In February 27th, the National Judicial Council (NJC) recommended for dismissal 2 judges, Justice Gladys Olotu of the Abuja Federal High Court and Justice Ufot Iyang of the FCT High Court for gross misconduct. One of the most significant events in the nation's judiciary was the appointment of Justice Mahmood Mohammed as the new Chief Judge of Nigeria, following the mandatory statutory retirement of former CJN Justice Mariam Aloma Mokhtar, who clocked 70 years. On the 15th of July, the Nigerian Bar Association elected Mr. Augustine Alege SAN from its Benin branch as the 27th president of the NBA. 2014 would not be complete without some judgments passed during the year, like the Supreme Court sacking of Amodu Fintiri as the acting governor of Adamawa State, while directing the state's chief judge to immediately swear in former deputy governor Bala Ingilari. Supreme Court also on November 21st sacked Gabar Umar as the acting governor of Taraba State and ordered immediate swearing in of Sani Danladi as the substantive governor. The nation's judiciary, like other arms of government, recorded its ups and downs in the past year. And as we enter into the election year, the judiciary should be gearing up towards resolving some of its issues, as it is usually in the heart of election disputes. Victoria Ido, reporting for Channels Television News.
All right, now to take another look at the judiciary in 2014 and developments moving forward, I'm now being joined on the news at 10 by a legal practitioner, Mr. Afam Ani. Thank you so much for joining us on the news at 10. All right, we've seen a bit of what happened last year with the judiciary. How would you rate the performance that you saw last year?
Well, for me, the judiciary in Nigeria has done relatively well, considering all the circumstances within which they function. And when we are talking about rating the judiciary, we look at who is doing the rating. The NJC, for instance, will have its own parameters for rating the judiciary. The lawyers that appear in court will also have their own parameters. The litigants themselves will have their own parameters. And the common man in the streets will also have his own parameter. It now depends on how you want to assess the judiciary in order to say, oh, they have performed well or they have not performed well.
That's what we want you to do now.
For me as an individual, and talking from the position of a representative of the average Nigerian, I think that the judiciary has performed relatively well. There is this sentence or statement I used to see in the police station where they say, if you think the police is not your friend, next time you have a case, try a thug. If you think the judiciary is not performing well, try self-help and you see the difference. The judiciary remains the last hope of the common man.
But it's interesting that you say they're performing well when we see that some of the sore points of last year that marred the performance have already crept in on the second judiciary workers down tools. We've started the year with a strike nationwide. What does that say to us?
Well, industrial dispute is a common phenomenon in every society. It depends on how it is managed, either before it snowballs into a strike, or when the strike has occurred, how do you bring the various parties or the two parties to a negotiating table? Mm-hmm. So it's unfortunate that what is happening in the judicial system today being the first working day of the year, the staff are on strike.
Over financial autonomy.
Over financial autonomy. And like I said, it's unfortunate, but I expect that all parties involved will go back to the negotiating table and find a lasting solution. This is the list of any of the challenges we expect to see in the year 2015 as far as our judiciary is concerned.
Give us some of the challenges that you see.
Well, for 2015, as you and I know, is an election year, and a lot will be expected from our courts. For instance, there is a time bound within which the various electoral tribunals will deliver their judgment. We will expect a time-conscious judiciary that knows that these matters will come before them and must be decided on judiciously and on time. As they say, justice delayed is justice denied.
But can they actually do that with a lot of issues that remain unresolved? For instance, we look at abuse on judges in terms of them being beaten up, etc. And then you find these are the same judges whom political cases are supposed to go to. How do we forestall that kind of issue? Because that case in Ekiti is still there. And it does worry a number of people that when we have political cases in court, it could end like that.
Yeah, it worries me too, as an individual, as a practitioner, that our judges are not well protected. Every Nigerian should be worried about that. You as a journalist, for instance, if you are doing your job and you feel threatened, there's no way you will perform optimally. So if we expect our judges to perform very well, discharge their duties without fear or favor, then it also presupposes that the government in power, the executive arm of government, must provide security and protection for these people, for these judges to do their job and do it well. Above all, the judges also need to be courageous to do their work.
All right. Thank you so much. It's at that point we're going to leave it. Mr. Afam, an illegal practitioner, thank you so much for joining us and reviewing the judiciary in 2014 on the news at 10 tonight.
Thank you very much.
Still ahead on the news at 10, work and businesses resume nationwide after the holidays. You join us again.